Welcome to Unworthy, where we are sharing testimonies of God's love and redeeming grace, because all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, being justified freely by His grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, which is in Romans 3:23 and 24. And friends, today, if you don't know that redeeming love, we would love to hear from you at our website, www.I.Am.Unworthy.com. We'd be happy to come alongside with you and pray with you, or just talk to you a little bit about that, or answer to the best of our ability any questions that you have. Because we would love to share what God has done in our lives and the lives around us. And so today we are picking back up with our friend Bonnie and her story. And so if you haven't heard the first part of her story, you might want to check that out, because today picks up where we left off before. And we pray that you'll be blessed by her story of redemption and her story of her miracle son, Kyle, and just how God is so good in His journey, our journeys and where He leads us. And sometimes we can't always see it, but He is always good. And we hope that you'll have a blessed day and be blessed by her story. Thank you.
You always have to believe in God's plan too, in the situation you're in. I mean, we have Connor, and Connor's put us through the ringer with,
Yes.
We had him. So the funny thing is that we had Jesse and Kyle. They were healthy, and Mike made it where he was, he had a vasectomy, and we thought we were good to go. And then 10 years later, I get pregnant, and it was terrifying, and it was tense at our house because, the man has been sterilized. You're going to automatically think their wife's been unfaithful. I mean, if I were a man, I'd think the same thing too, wouldn't you? To a certain extent.
I mean,
don't lie. I know you, and you are just an angel, I've never given Mike any reason, but you don't ever know. And because life, like my pastor says, humans are no guarantee. The only guarantee you have in life is God and His word.
Yes. But I would say the other piece of that is, like, if God needs for there to be a baby, there'll be a baby. Like,
but that's where we're at. So, so we truly...
That's why no birth control is 100% effective.
No.
Let's just go with that story. Like, let's make that clear.
I'm pretty sure my daughter's a nun now. Because we have scared her. Because when we found out we were pregnant, and... Oh, it was such a weird time. It was scary, but awesome. And we knew God gave Connor to us to help with Kyle. To keep Jessie on the straight and narrow. I mean, I remember picking her up from school and driving home, and I'm like, she had her first boyfriend. And I said, you remember this moment. I said, every time you have sex or want to have sex, you remember that you may get pregnant. You have no control over this.
Yeah, it's not 100%.
It's not 100%.
It's not 100%.
And she was like, yes, Mom. I get it. Like, she was... And look, that girl, she's amazing. I mean, she's doing exactly what she's supposed to do. I hate it sometimes because I wish that she would make some mistakes because she'd be more human. But that child, she's rocking it out, right?
Yep.
But point being is we had Connor. He's 10 years younger than Kyle and 16 years younger than Jesse, and he's bossy, and he keeps up with Kyle, and he's forced Kyle to grow up. And that kid's put us through the ringer. We joke we can't make babies without head problems, because about 4 weeks after we had Connor, we found out he had to have a craniotomy. His staph spot on the top of his head was completely closed and was basically pushing... He had a cone head. It was pushing his brain out the back of his head and his skull. So I checked out at that point. I had a craniotomy at 4 months old, and I checked out, and my grandma died at the same time. It was a mess.
Yes.
It was crazy. But he's fine. He has a
But he's fine, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a giant head. And
he has a zigzag.
He does. He has a Harry Potter scar. It starts right here, and it zigzags back to about right here.
I mean, Harry Potter wishes he had that scar.
We joke that chicks dig scars like that. When I found out I was pregnant, I was like, why me? Like, I am 40 years old. What is going on? I was a little angry. I have days where I'm like, actually, me and Mike kind of laughed the other day because I was standing at the sink doing dishes, and I'm like, we're almost home free. You know, like, Kyle's 15. We were almost at that point where it was like we didn't have to really raise kids anymore.
Yeah. They were like, yeah.
We could coast a little bit, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And we're right back in it.
Yeah, because Connor's in school now.
He's finally in
And
kindergarten.
so now you're back at homework, and we got to stay on top of this and that, and it's like that, like like the hard, like the rigor of school.
The rigor of parenting, really.
Mm-hmm,
the age of, you know, establishing
boundaries and
right from wrong.
Yes. That's
habits, good habits.
Mm-hmm.
And we're older. It's a different, you know, people say, oh, I'm an older parent, and they've had kids later in life after they've had them young, and they're like, I'm more patient. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I don't know. I think that you're pretty patient.
I have my moments. I joke with Mike that I've given Kyle all my patience, and poor Connor's just getting leftovers.
You might, again, I think we always see like the worst of ourselves, right? Because I don't see it like that. I feel like you're very patient.
Yeah, but he's me. He's the kid we should have had in our 20s. He's incredible. Smart.
He is very smart.
He's very smart. You can show
an incredible housekeeper.
Like I said, he's like me. It's about the only thing I can say I'm good at. I'm good at cleaning.
You're good at a lot of things. You don't give yourself enough credit for. But, I mean, housekeeping is definitely on the list of things you're incredible at. I'm not going to lie. But he is an incredible housekeeper.
He's helpful. And
he is so helpful.
But yeah, he can wash the dishes better than most 25-year-old men can. Like,
he wants to like clean up immediately after dinner. We had the blessing of watching him and Kyle over the summer, and it's like I'm not as good. I'm not even as good of a housekeeper. I'm actually a very poor housekeeper.
No, she's not.
That is
not
true.
true.
No, it is actually true. And so, you know, when we're done with dinner, I'm okay with like leaving dishes for a while. Honestly, like probably a little bit more than a while, but I'm okay with like not immediately flipping to putting up everything. Like I'm okay with like taking a beat before you know, Connor. No, you've got to get it together.
Yeah,
you do not get to like flip to rest mode, like digestion mode. He wants to immediately, you know, wash those dishes, put everything away, get it all put back together and spotless. Like, and he
does it. It's
incredible.
Not like he expects you to do it.
And he wants to do it himself.
He's very independent.
He's very independent. And what was funny at that time is like he was not sleeping in his bed. And I was like, if you can clean the house like a 42-year-old housewife, you can sleep in your own bed. Like,
no, that is so true. And he's still not. He's a turkey. He likes to snuggle. He's so snuggly.
He is snuggly.
So sweet.
I get it.
But you know,
I get it.
And they say like look, I made up my mind when Kyle was in the hospital. I was like, I will never miss a nap with my kids if they want to lay down with me. I always, this sounds terrible, but I always stopped for Kyle, and with Connor, I'm a little less apt to just be like, he's like, come sit with me, and I'm like, but mommy's got to get this done. And with Kyle, I was never really like that, but I think it goes back to I don't worry about him as much.
Yeah.
And if Kyle was asking me to sit with him, there was something wrong. Which is terrible.
Because he didn't ask. He didn't verbalize.
No, he never verbalized.
Because he was actually would rather have been left by himself. Yeah. And so if he wanted you, you knew something was wrong. Whereas Connor, I think, likes to have you with him all the time. And so if you actually did that for him all the time, you would probably get almost nothing done.
I would get nothing done.
Right.
And that's it's just he just wants somebody by him.
Right.
He's like, you want to go upstairs and play Legos? And I'm like, sure. And I'm like, what do you want me to build? And he's like, oh, you can just sit here and watch.
Yeah, just be with me.
Yeah, just sit here. Do you want to color? Yeah. You can watch me color.
Right.
Or help me color. It's not.
But it's lovely that he loves you and he wants you to be. But, you know, I get that. We're all just figuring this out. I think there's some idea that people have motherhood, parenthood, like magically we know what we're doing. No.
If you haven't figured out, then you are the second coming of Christ.
Yeah.
Nobody has it figured out.
Send me a note.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then we're gonna prayer request from you. Like
yeah. Maybe you could send us a message on our website. Yeah. If you could send a message on the website, that'd be amazing. But I think by and large, everybody's winging it in some way. And so, I think we're all just trying to figure it out and damaging our children somewhat along the way of figuring it out in a way.
I've kind of joked, like, you can't get through life without humor, and we've had some pretty sick and twisted humorous moments. Like a joke of I can't make babies without head problems. Just little things like that, or chick stink scars. That's how me and Mike, because we didn't see Connor's actual cut on the top of his head till we came home, and they didn't tell us what it was going to look like. Who would think? Like, would you think of asking, what is the cut going to look like? Like, is it going to be a zigzag? Or
you would have assumed it would just be a straight
line.
A straight, beautifully perfect line, like a qualified surgeon would make. Well, that's what you would assume it would look like.
Well, they don't cut them perfectly so that their hair grows back normal.
Right. Who knew?
Who would have thought?
Who knew that?
So he took his little beanie
off.
Except
the neurosurgeon knew that.
Took the little beanie off, and we're sitting there, and me and Mike were like, what did they do to our baby? Like, it was this zigzag, it was stapled shut, it was just raw.
Yeah.
It was such a scary thing.
It was startling.
It was very startling.
Yes.
And then
with no preparation.
None. And the only person we had ever known that had a craniotomy was a man that Mike works with, and his son is severely autistic, like nonverbal, so many issues. Wore a helmet on his head for years because they didn't figure out his head till he was like 2. And they try to get these kind of things fixed before 4 months because they're more resilient. Like, the whole time, you would have never known that Connor had his head cut open because he was perfectly fine. He never cried. He never whined about it. I mean, the first couple days, of course, when we were in the hospital, he did, but it was nothing compared to what we thought it was going to be.
Right.
So, but we were terrified in that sense because I'm like, I don't know how special needs moms can have multiple special needs kids. Because just having typical kids and their different personalities, like Chase and Jacob, and they're so different, but I was terrified because I was barely keeping my head above water, and that is I was constantly feeling like I was shoved underwater, like fighting for air all the time, and then God gave me this baby, and I'm like, doesn't he already know that I've like reached my limit?
Well, he was full term.
And it was term. Like, they were able to keep him in me. They could never tell me why I had Kyle early. But Michael gave me a shot once a week for, I don't know, when did they start? 13 weeks? No. It was like 18 weeks until 36 weeks or something when it was considered a non-preemie. But boy, as soon as I didn't take that next shot, I was in labor. But they kept, he was term. He was a 7-pound baby. And I remember when he came out, I was like, I did it. But we were talking on the way up yesterday. You would have thought every day after I'd got past like that 26-week mark, that I would be like, okay, we're good. Nope. Every morning I woke up going, please just give me one more day. Just give me one more day. And it was never, I love being pregnant. My body doesn't love it, but you don't know fear. And I remember Michael telling me this on our honeymoon. We went to the mountains after we got married. I can't stop crying, I'm sorry. He said, you don't know fear until you've had a child. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're out of your mind. And that is the God honest truth. You do not know fear until you've had a child. And we have had the worst case scenario, with both our boys.
Yeah, being in these huge situations.
Huge situations.
Where you're putting their care in strangers' hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I come from a background career-wise of working in healthcare, and you know, I would often tell the nurses, and you know, that these are people, and they're in like their worst situations, right?
Yeah, nobody wants
They're
to be
like,
sick.
yeah, they don't want to be here. They don't want to be sick. They were able to go to the bathroom yesterday by themselves, and now they're having to ring and ask for help to go to the bathroom. Like, nobody wants to be here and in this situation. And so, like, they're trusting strangers with, like, their most important stuff. They're trusting them with their family members, like the people they love the most. And in this case, like, when you think about babies and, like, the most vulnerable, who can't speak for themselves, who can't tell you if, you know, something happens when you can't be there 24/7, right, in some cases. And so, like, how vulnerable, right, you're trusting these strangers with their care. And so it's just a hard place to be. And then to be in it not once, but then have to revisit it twice.
To hand your baby over to a stranger and hope that they come back to you is probably one of the worst feelings in the world.
Right.
Or leaving your baby, like, you're supposed to have your baby and take them home with you.
Yeah, when you have, that's the beauty of being pregnant, right?
Right,
And
having that. And I had to leave my baby at the hospital, and I was, oh my God, you cannot describe that feeling until my face, I looked like I had been beat. I cried so hard on the way home, and we had to go back because we had to go home because you had to be out of the hospital for so many days, or 24 hours before you could get into the Ronald McDonald House. And oh my God, that was like the worst day of my life, was having to leave my baby. And then I wouldn't leave the hospital after he got sick because I was scared of leaving him. And, you know, you're so neurotic and hormonal that I was scared that he would think the nurses were his mom, not me. So I would make sure I wore like had the same shampoo, same, you know, lotion, soap, everything, so that he knew my smell. Hindsight's 2020. That boy will always know who his mom is. And those nurses loved him. He got snuggles at night. We could not figure out for the life of us why he woke up at 2:00 every morning when we first got home, and come to find out Barbie would hold him for an hour because all the babies were sleeping and level, and they were fed and changed. So she would, I mean, I'm so grateful for
the care he did get and the love he did get when you weren't there.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then with Connor, it was like handing my baby over to a stranger that you have this mentality that, you know, a neurosurgeon has a God complex. This guy was literally Bill Murray. He was the most humbled, laid back, sweetest, kindest man you would ever meet.
Yeah.
And you almost doubted him. You're like, you're really almost not cocky enough to do this job, kind of a thing. And then you've got a plastic surgeon that's gonna put your baby's head back together, that's, you know, fresh out of being a, you know, his fellowship, and it's like a puppy. He's happy and excited, and he's like, we're gonna do this, and you're like, you need to calm down. You have to put my baby's back together.
Yeah,
but
it's a lot of trust you give strangers when you think about it.
And the healthcare system is so skewed. Like, there's so much that could happen. And especially with us, come to find out, they didn't change Kyle's lines properly, and all the nurses that we had that day had gotten fired. And we had gotten very close to those nurses, and I knew, and this is where it comes to, you need to trust your gut. I knew that they had done that, and I didn't pursue it. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. It was such a weird thing. Like, it was one of those, I deserve this, I'm unworthy kind of a thing. Like, this is the card I was dealt. But I look back at it now, and I'm like, I should have been more diligent, because he would have gotten more help, I guess, financially. And I mean, just the therapies alone, driving back and forth, and all that, people don't realize. People are like, why don't you put him in a sport? I'm like, we pay for, people would swallow their tongue if they knew how much money we call Kyle the $1 million baby. He's like 2.5 at this point, you know? So,
Yes, yeah.
because he's just been, but it's been worth every single dime.
Right, right.
So,
And I think God provides, right? Like at the end of the day, the Lord will provide. And so He is so good in that way that when we bring Him what we need, He provides a way.
Absolutely.
And so He sets that path sometimes in motion years before, like, because He foresees we're going to have this need up ahead. And so He puts those, stones in place so that when we get there, here's this need we have, and here's this meeting of our need. And it's kind of like, it's just miraculous in that way.
Yeah. And then me, like, my grandma died right after I had Connor, which she was my person. She was my favorite person in the whole world, but God took her so that she could be there for me. Does that make sense? Because she couldn't be there when she was here. But when He took her, He gave her back to me for that moment. Because I felt her. I feel her all the time, but when we were going through that, I always had that feeling of calm. But it was her, He was. But it's just fascinating how things work in the scheme of things. Like, I was angry when she died, and I was sad, but I didn't have time to process it. Does that?
Yeah.
Because there was so much going
grief
on.
is like that, right?
Yeah. But
like we talked about this morning, like you compartmentalize things because you have to get through things.
Yeah.
There's just physically acts sometimes, like life things you have to do, and you don't always have time to actually process your grief and emotions. And so sometimes you have to take care of the people around you. You have to make this appointment. You have to go to work. You have to do this and that.
You have your other children.
You have your other children to take care of. And so you can't actually always feel the things you want to feel in life, right, when it comes to grief. And so, but then there are times where that catches up with you in moments, and you break down in weird things, right, like a song or a smell. Or I know one time, I have to tell this story all the time, like one time the way Roger like was hitting a piece of wood when he was working on a wall, and he like tapped the wood, and the way he hit the board reminded me of my dad and how my dad would always put boards in place, because Roger worked drywall with my dad for years, and like it's just the way, I don't know. It just triggered, like I saw not Roger's hand in that moment, I saw my dad's hand in that moment, and it just took me to seeing my dad, and so that made me cry. And so it's just weird. Grief is weird like that.
It is super weird.
And so it's just like the weirdest little things then will trigger sometimes when you haven't fully processed sometimes your grief.
I didn't know.
Or grief is maybe not even ever fully processed. I don't know.
I don't know either. So I never thought I would be one of those people that would grieve somebody for so long. But I don't think I ever had an opportunity in the beginning. I grieved her before she passed because she was not there. Like when I told her I was pregnant with Connor, she's like, it's about time. I'm like, Grandma, how old do you think I am? And she's like, 20, 25. And I'm like, I'm 40 years old. And she's like, you have lost your mind. What is wrong with you? Like, she had a late in life baby. But I didn't think I would grieve for somebody this long, but I was so close to her. And she was my person that I don't know how long it'll be.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah,
there's
when you are so in love with somebody, like you never lose that. That part of you will always be with you.
Yeah,
I'm sure you feel like that about your grandma.
Yeah, I love my grandma. Yeah. I loved my grandma, and I think that there's part of me that just wishes she could be here and see. I just miss talking to her.
Yeah,
but then some days I'm like, feel like I still could just have a conversation with her, and like
she was my sounding board.
But I wish I could hear what she would say back to me. But I just know that she's in heaven, and I have that peace, and that I know that she's living her best life, and that she's at peace, and I know that she was ready, and that is, I hope that when it's my time, I always say that, I hope nobody's sad when I go in some ways, because I'll be living my best life.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't actually want people to be sad
I don't either.
in that way. Because I'm going to be just fine.
I agree.
And so that's how I feel about her. And I know she wouldn't want me to be sad. But like everybody, like, you miss the people you love, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's the harder part for the people who are left behind.
It's funny genetics though, because when I was pregnant with Connor, he has my grandpa's hands. It's just wild. Like how, if you actually look at pictures of my grandpa when he was little, it's Connor. I mean, Connor looks like Michael. And Jesse and Connor are identical. It's like eerie.
Well, they kind of all look similar.
The same.
Mm-hmm.
I think Connor. Anyways, but it's just like when I was pregnant with him, I'm like, oh my gosh. And his attitude is just like my grandpa's. His personality. He's very, let's do it. Let's get it done.
Get it done.
So, but anyways, but that goes back to why in the world, and it goes back to God's plan and the unworthiness of the gifts that I've been given. Like, how can we get through this and still be, I mean, most people, their marriages would have been torn apart for everything we've been through. Making the decisions we've had to make and the insanity. But God gives you the right people, puts people in your life and in your path to help you get through it. You know?
That's true. I do believe that's one of the ways that he does provide, right? Like, he provides through resources, but he often I think provides through people, right? He uses us. He uses other people, strangers, right, to provide too. And so maybe because I know we're not sure how long our microphones are going to hold out. Maybe talk, if you don't care, like, about your then faith journey, like how you've gotten. You talked about it's been right at a year, and so how did you get there?
Me and Michael had been talking about going to church for a while, and we just kind of kept putting it off. And it was one of those things where he grew up Baptist, I grew up Lutheran. We wanted to find something kind of in between because I love Mike's parents' church. I love the fact that they still go to the same church that Mike grew up in, but I don't know if it's been the pastors in the past or what. Stop touching it.
It blinked.
But I was never comfortable. I left out of there always feeling like guilty, and then I had taken him to a Lutheran church in New Bern, and oh my gosh, it was around Easter time, and it was the credo was being sang, and it was the intense chanting back and forth, It
was like the most Lutheran,
most Lutheran situation, and I knew all the words, kind of a thing, and he was uncomfortable, so we kind of were just like, where do we go from here? Well, a lot happened with my family. I had a lot of falling out with people. I had to make decisions of keeping people in my life, and were they benefiting me or hurting me? Back to treating Kyle poorly. We were trying to find a church, and we couldn't find a happy medium, and then I was going through a really hard time, mentally. I had to choose myself over family, which I always felt like I was the problem, but then I was starting to realize that I wasn't the problem, because I honestly, I would have packed up and left with Chester the molester if he'd asked me to at 19 years old. I just got fortunate that I met somebody that was really nice. I mean, it's true. I mean, I was running around with the wrong crowd. I couldn't get along with my parents. I was just in a very bad place. And then Jeff was like, hey, you want to go to North Carolina and scuba dive? And I'm like, let's go.
That sounds great.
I would love to. And of course, my parents were like, what are you going to do if he leaves you in Texas? And I'm like, well, I'll find a rich cowboy. I was on a mission.
You just needed to be out.
I needed to get out. Yeah. And though, I think having my own family, I started to realize how skewed my view on family was. I had met Mike's parents who, they're incredible people.
They are
just
incredible.
Good Christian people. I didn't know you could have fun without alcohol. I didn't know, again, going back to Kyle's birth, and Mom said, Michael's laying on the floor in the lobby, just a mess, and she's like, here comes Rick. And gets down on the floor with his son, and I know he prayed for him. I know he prayed with him, but it was such a different dynamic
than what you were getting.
than what I was getting, where my mom was like, what did you do? And she was laying on me for comfort when I was getting ready to have my world turned upside down, and I was telling her to get off me because I'm so independent. I'm like, I need to prepare myself for this. Anyways, I was processing everything. Things had calmed down, and I guess it just all hit me. Everything that happened with Kyle, I was remembering things that I had forgotten. The PTSD started coming out, and long story short, my friend Terry walked up to me one day and was like, why don't you come to church with me? Just come try it. I was like, oh. So I went home and told Mike, and he's like, well, why don't you go see what it's like, and if you like it, then I'll go. I'm like, no. And we don't fight about anything, but I was like, no.
Adamant. You were like,
I was like, we're going to do this together. I'm not going to go. This is a group activity, you know, and I get where Mike was coming from because we have been treated kind of differently in the past, but I got where he was coming from. Like, we have a special needs kid, and we've got this little one, and we don't know how they're going to act. And I'm like, I don't care. You know how you just have that I don't care moment? So, you know, we started at the end of, I guess, January, like at the first of the year, and we'd leave out of there, and like everything Jeremy said just touched my heart. Just kept,
like, it was working on you, right?
It was working on me, and we would leave, and me and Mike would talk about it. And I've never been in a place where I felt so much in a building. Does that make sense? And that building just was like holding me. And we walked out of church one day, and we got in the car, and I looked at Mike, and I'm like, I get it. Because he's like, I said, like, how do you know? And he's like, you'll know. You'll know. Like, you knew when you met me. You'll know. So we got in the car, and we were sitting in the parking lot, and I said, I get it now. Like, I get it. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I get the safe thing. And he's like, well, let's call my dad. And I'm like, why are we calling your dad? And he's like, wait a minute. He's like, I can do this. He's like, do you accept Jesus into your heart? And I was like, yes. And I mean, I've never been, there's been 2 times I felt like somebody was proud of me in my life. The first time was Michael sounds stupid. Michael taking me to a work Christmas party, and me walking in that room on his arm made me, I felt so loved and so worthy of him. Does that make sense? And then that day I could see in his face how proud, those 2 times were the times that I really felt how proud he was of me. And so we went home and called Mike's parents and told them, and they were so excited, and I was crying, and it was happy tears. And then I was like, because I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know if a pastor had to baptize me. And I said, can you do it, to Mike's dad? And he was just like, yeah. Like, he was so excited, and he did it. And I got baptized on March 15th. I really wanted it on the 16th, which sounds weird, which would have been my grandma's 100th birthday. It's on March 16th, but
it was a Monday, not a Sunday.
It was a Monday, not a Sunday, and
but it was close.
It was close.
Yeah.
And oh no, I take that back. I think it was on the 17th I got baptized because the 16th was on a Saturday.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, something like that. It was like, yeah. So, anyways.
But it was like one day off.
It was one day off, and it was fine because I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. But Mike's dad, God, he was so nervous, and he's not a big man. And he gets in the baptistry, and he's in hip waiter. Like,
yeah, he was.
And he's 5'3". I'm bigger. I outweigh him by like 10 pounds. He's just, and I was terrified he was gonna catch the water in his waders. I was gonna pull him under. I wouldn't have traded for anything in the world, but I never had that. Everybody I've ever, I'm like, how, you know, like, they've talked about their baptism, and they were like, it was the most peaceful feeling being dipped under that water. And I just remember thinking, I'm gonna drown the one man that has, you know, he loves me, and I'm getting ready to, you know, pull him under with me. But I wouldn't have traded it for anything in the world.
Yeah. He was so proud.
He was, and I've never.
I mean, I feel like we were all very, like, I mean, I cried. Like,
I know, though,
I feel like the
my
boys
mom-
were like, I feel like everybody was just very, I mean, Roger's whole family, I mean, like,
Oh my gosh! And the people that showed up.
we were
For
a big
me.
crowd.
Yeah, the entire Honecker clan came, and it was like
It was a big crowd.
it was, and people that in the church that I grew up with, they were all there, and they were super excited for me. It was just I was just blown away at how loved I felt that day. But I'm sorry. Mike's parents, they have, I don't know what, like when you say like you don't know how you're gonna go through life without them. Mike's parents are just, it's gonna be a hard time when something happens to them, because they're those people that the night Kyle got sick, we called them and
They just came.
and
Yeah.
they were there in a very dangerous amount of time. Like, they didn't hesitate.
Yeah.
And
Well, they show up, right? Like, they're the people
and I've
that
never
show up.
had that before. I've never had people to show up for me, and it, you know, it just goes back to the neglect. And if I didn't do what was right by my family, then I was ignored
Or punished.
or punished.
Mhm.
And 9 times out of 10, I didn't know what I was being punished for, because either one was yelling or one was not talking to me for a long period of time. But I mean, the night I called my mom that night Kyle got sick, she's like, he's fine. I don't know why you're worrying so much about it. I don't have a bad feeling about this. You're not psychic, nor are you Jesus. So how do you know? And you don't see this child, like, he's sick.
Yeah.
And so, but Mike's parents never missed a beat. And always, and it's interesting to me to see my children around them, because Kyle is so normal and interactive with them.
Yeah.
And with my family, it's very robotic, very, he's, you know, like when I had Connor, my mom came out and like, mom had Kyle, and it was fine, but I worried. And I never worry about my kids with Mike's parents, but with mine, it's different, you know.
Well, I think that kids are intuitive, right? And they know when they're like unconditionally accepted and unconditionally loved, right?
But like my stepdad, he didn't want kids, and he came into my mom's life when I was like 25, maybe sooner, I can't remember. We were grown and out of the house, but Kyle gravitates towards Chuck. Chuck didn't want his own kids, and he's taking my brother and me into his life like we're his own, in a very weird way. But I know I can call him for anything over anybody else, and other than like Mike's parents. But if I needed something, I know I can call him. But Chuck is looking from the outside in, and he knows that my life and my family are taken care of. And then if it was a bad, you know, like, he sees my good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I never felt like I was good enough growing up. But since mom met Chuck, I felt that from him, and I do feel that now from Mike's parents and my husband. You know, and it's a beautiful feeling, because I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know what I was missing until. But my path, so I got saved, Mike's dad baptized me, and it's just been, it's funny because like last week I had a really rough week, but I had started getting complacent and kind of lazy. Does that make sense? Like my Bible study, I'm like, would give it 5 minutes instead of 30, or I'll just do it later. And the 2 days that I kind of was putting things on the back burner when it came to my routine of reading my Bible and praying and stuff like that, it got really hard for a couple days. And me and Mike, Wednesday night, we went to church and we left, and I was like, God, could he have hit on every freaking chord, you know, like, do you ever have those?
Yes,
And
all the time.
so Thursday,
Mhm.
you know, I sat down and I read my Bible and I took time for myself and time with God. And then Thursday, I teach an elderly fitness class for senior citizens, and one of the issues I had that week was with some of the people in that class that were being ugly to me, and I wasn't gonna say anything, but then the bottom dropped out and it was pouring the rain outside, and I was like, he's keeping them here so I can talk to them about the situation. And I felt so much better after I talked about it. I have to do it again on Tuesday, but the old self would have just ignored the problem and blamed it on myself for not being more compassionate or not being more aware. But because God gave me that permission to speak my mind and let them know they had hurt my feelings or whatever, like, it made me feel, okay, I'm worthy in that aspect. Like, he's looking out for me. It's not always negative. Bad things happen to good people. Your feelings are going to get hurt, but there's ways of dealing with that kind of a thing. And I had prayed on it. That's what I kept telling Mike. I'm like, I've been praying on it. I said, I haven't gotten an answer yet. I don't know what I'm going to do. But in that moment, when everybody's getting ready to leave, and I heard that rain, I was like, you know, y'all, I got to talk to you about something. I don't think y'all want to leave in this rain, do you? And they're like, no, you know, so. But it was.
So it gave you the extra couple minutes to kind of address what was on your heart.
Exactly. And I felt better. I think it made people more aware of how they were treating me. I mean, the people that were being not very nice. So in the last year, I'm not in a dark place. I have more light in my life. I don't worry about things as much, but I think it's just part of my personality. I have turned over a lot of control. I've never felt more out of control in a lot of things, but I've had to learn to just be like, you know what? This is not in your wheelhouse. This is not something you can control. You can't force it. So there's just a lot of growth. I'm trying to show myself grace because I'm a perfectionist, because I was never allowed to make mistakes.
Right.
And now I am allowed, but that's hard for me. I think sometimes I've taken it to the next level because there's things that, like forgetting things, and I'm like, I would have never forgot that, you know, just things for my kids or whatever, but I think it's age related too, to be quite honest.
Well, I mean.
But there's just a lot of things. I have a lot of work to do, a lot of growth, but I think at some point I'll be okay, you know. I feel better than I have in a long time, but I still have a long way to go.
Well, I think everybody does, and so that's not unique.
No,
that's something you should feel unique, right? Like, I don't want you to feel like that's just
I mean,
where you know.
There's if you hit perfection, then what's the point? Like, it's always a process. You know?
We can only be better than we were yesterday.
And I'm trying to be my friend. I'm not trying to be my own worst critic. Does that make sense? Like, I'm trying to be a friend to myself, because the things that I say in my head, if somebody physically said that to me, I would be like, what is wrong with you? So I'm trying to process all that and be okay with myself in the situation that we're in, because it's always changing and evolving and moving. Like, when it comes with Kyle, I feel like everything else is just, our life revolves around our kids, you know. That's all I talk about. I'm sure people get tired of me talking about Kyle, but he's my life, you know. But I'm figuring out as I go, just like everybody else. I'm not as hard on myself as I used to be. So I still have a lot of anxiety when it comes to, like, I'm a people pleaser, and socially I don't know how to explain it. Like, not worrying about what people think about me. Like, every time, and it's nothing you've ever done, it's always me. Like, every time we've left here, I'm like, did I say something or do something to make them mad? But it's just me, it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm trying to really just be like, you know what? I'm a good person. I'm nice. I'll do anything in the world for anybody.
Right.
If I say something off color, it's not on purpose, or, you know, it's,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna hurt people's feelings, you know. It's,
Well, and I
don't
think
do it
I've
on
told you,
purpose.
like, I don't get offended. I mean, like, I
Right.
don't, right? Like, I've
Yeah.
said this to you, because
Yeah.
you've said that you have this
Anxiety.
And
Yeah.
I've said,
I don't
I
think
don't-
you've never. Yeah.
I've said I would take, like, I don't even know what you could say to me that would, like, super offend me.
And
Because I'm just not a super offendable person.
Well,
Like,
and
I don't take offense.
I think our
easy.
relationship is strong enough
Solid,
where if
yeah.
I would, if said something, you'd be like,
If it was super
Really?
bad, I would just say something to you.
Right.
Correct.
you wouldn't. Be
Yeah,
like,
I wouldn't
"Oh."
hold it in my heart, right?
You'd be like, really, Bonnie? Come on.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold it in my heart. But I'm also, like, a person who doesn't take a lot of offense easy. I let
Mhm.
things just kind of roll, because I'm not gonna, I try to give people, like, a grace, like, a belief that whatever you're saying, it's not, like, you're a
Directed,
bad thing. Like,
Right.
you're not trying to say it from a bad place or whatever.
Mhm.
I forget, somebody called it something once that was good, but now I can't remember what it was. It's like believing that they're coming from a good place,
Mhm.
and not a bad place. But certainly, I know that you love me,
Mhm.
and so I'm never going to believe that you don't love me and that you want the best for
And
me.
I would never do anything maliciously to hurt or say
Correct.
anything. And I've had to learn to put up boundaries. I've had to learn to set boundaries, because it's not okay to be treated like a doormat,
Mhm.
or to be taken advantage of, or be made to feel less than. And that's where I'm working on myself, in the aspect that if God can love me for all the crap I've done, then these people should love me and not know what this, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
they're supposed to love me, and he doesn't have to love me. Does that make sense? But he loves me anyways.
He does love us anyway.
And so I've had to put up boundaries, and people say I need to forgive, and I have forgiven,
Mhm.
but I'm not ready to talk. And that's helped me a lot too. Like, I've forgiven my dad and my brother in my heart, but I'm not ready to talk to them about it yet. I'm still working on that part of me.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I'll ever get to that place, because I've been hurt so bad. I've had to keep up boundaries with my mom and keeping her informed just enough to keep her happy, I guess. Yeah, so that's been my process. I'm just trying to,
I think that
so new.
that's a hard, I think there's been a couple of sermons I think we've talked about that. Maybe it was Pastor Daniel Floyd, right, from Life Point. He had on the subject that were really good.
Well, like letting people at your table type
Yes,
stuff.
yes. And, where you can forgive, and how God does want us reconciled, but, like, what does that exactly mean? And I think part of that is that you can have boundaries, and at the end of the day, we should still love people and want the best for them. But that doesn't always mean we are doormats, and that we're always, just letting people hurt us, or that we're letting them hurt, like in your case, your children constantly, right? But that you're still loving them and praying for them and wanting the best for them, and that you're not holding the hurt in your heart,
Right.
because it hurts you more than anything, right?
Right. It's only just tearing you down. And I do pray for them. I pray that they do find peace in their heart and understanding, and know that I don't hate them.
But these are things we have to work through. Like, none of us are perfect in this space. Like, these are the harder things, I think,
and
as people to work through.
And I'm not perfect, so I'm sure that they are finding my faults. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, we're all.
I know that I'm not perfect,
we're
nor am
all
I
not
naive enough to know that they're angry at me for cutting them off, and they're finding faults in me right now, and I'm not naive enough to think, well, I have done nothing wrong, because I have been far from.
We've all created our own hurt,
Right.
Like we've all hurt
Exactly.
people too, and so yeah, it's a hard space I think to navigate, but I think that pray, just praying and trusting that God's Spirit will lead you through this space, because at the end of the day we can only trust in Him that He will give us the words, like when you are talking, or if you ever decide you can't have that conversation, or if it presents itself for you to have that conversation, trusting that He will give you the right words so that you can navigate that, because at the end of the day you would love for them to be saved and to come to know this peace that you have, right? Like at the end of the day, that's what we want for people, for everyone. And that's part of doing this, right? Is to show people that that we're not perfect. There's no perfection. And so,
and you can live through the worst of things and there be a silver lining in it all.
yeah.
And that He's only looking out for your best interest. You just have to be patient and know that it's just a process.
Yeah. And it's sometimes the harder part is trusting the process.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even, when you've had your faith for a long time, that doesn't mean that life is just, we joke sometimes, like, unicorns and rainbows or whatever. Like, it's not going to just be happy days ahead. There are trials, there are tribulations, there are really bad things that happen to really great people. We see it all the time. But there is a plan, there is a greater purpose. And sometimes, the things that He teaches us in the valleys are the things that make us so much better overall, or that we're put in a moment in the future where we can help someone else going through that same thing. And that means everything, right? Like at the end of the day, like those moments where we think we cannot make it through, like this is this thing that I just don't know how I can get through, and He absolutely will get you through it. Like Paul, I've always said, is like one of my favorite people in the Bible, because I think he shows a redemption. He shows how how much people can grow, right, from persecuting Christians to then his life goal is making Christians, right, spreading that gospel.
And
but then
and talking about his faults, like
and
he
always
was
being
always
very authentic,
honest, and being like, look, I was a horrible person, I did horrible things to
being very honest about his faults and his and saying, when you look at me and you see good in me, it is God in me, right? And I think that's like the humble part that I want people to know, right? Like, if you've ever seen any good in me, it is God in me. It is not me. Right. It's never been me. And any triumph I've ever had is God. Yeah. Giving, like
giving you grace.
Giving me this opportunity, giving me whatever it is, like that victory. It's His victory, right?
And you look back on it, like I was perfectly content going back and forth from the Ronald McDonald House to the hospital and having that routine, and it sounds weird, but like being in the ICU with Connor after his head surgery, like I was content. I was in no hurry to leave, because that's where we needed to be. Yeah. And so I get that aspect, how Paul was just like, I'm content, I have everything I need. Yeah. And at that point, my babies were alive, they were thriving, they were doing okay, and it never bothered me. Like, it was to the point where they're like, you need to go home and sleep. Yeah. Or here's 2 Benadryl, call me in the morning. Like, so Paul is a good example of being just in the moment, living in the moment. Yeah. As best you can.
Yeah. And then taking like the trials and then flipping them to the triumph, right? Like using them for the God's glory, taking that moment. And whatever situation, he was in jail, he was converting people, right? He was in jail, he converted his jailer. Like, finding the people around you in whatever situation you're in and preaching the gospel. Like, whoever's in front of you, preaching Jesus. And I think that's maybe where I haven't been as bold
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm trying to be more bold
Mm-hmm.
because and I think I told you this, like recently, there's somebody on YouTube I love to watch. His name is Cliff, and he goes out and he preaches to a lot of kids in the university space. And he said one of his fears is that he'll see people, you know, being judged, and they'll say it's people he knows, and they'll say, Cliff, you knew this and you never told me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's his greatest fear. And I said, this has now unlocked what I think is my greatest fear, is that I'll see people who I know and they'll say, you've never told me.
And yeah, and it goes back to, like, I was so scared that my boys wouldn't be saved, and I could have fixed that. But again, it goes back to, you have to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
But they may need that person to guide them to do that for themselves. So
or to tell them, right? Like,
right, to be their vessel or their outlet into salvation.
Yeah. But we should be planting seeds, and so that's, you know, what
You've been very patient. I'm sure you wanted to plant a seed on the top of my head for many, many years, because I've been that crazy aunt that's like talking to your boys about things that, you know, like talking to Chase about keg stands in college. And you're just like,
I'm like, oh, let's not do that.
No. But you know, your kids have to be that person. You have to have that one person in their lives that, like, call me if you need me. I'll come get you, because they know that I would never judge them. I would be like, absolutely, I will come get you.
Yeah, and I hope the boys at the end of the day know that we would never judge, right? Like, at some point, like, they're going to mess up. Like, at the end of the day, like, I don't expect perfection from them.
No.
They're going to mess up.
They're
like,
capable.
They're going to mess up. They're going to make mistakes. And we're going to love them. They're kids. They're going to mess up. I'm going to love them no matter what.
Right.
And if they need me, all they have to do is call, and there is no judgment on this side of motherhood.
I think my biggest thing is I hate when parents treat their kids like they're not capable. And it's not setting them up for failure. It's, you know better. Be aware. And do your best. Like, yeah. And that's all I want for my kids.
Just make good choices.
Make good choices. That's right.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes with Jessie, she's just so on the straight and narrow. I'm like, just make one bad choice so you can learn from it. Because you have to let your kids make mistakes to learn.
Yes.
And that's a part of being a parent is.
And that is the beauty, you know, one of the things I do love about the Bible, I think, is that God has given us a whole book of people. And their failures.
And situations.
And their triumphs from the failures. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful, right? Like David, and how God says David is after my own heart. And David had his faults.
He
made his mistakes.
He was a man.
he had his things. And so he is one of many, right? People who struggled humanly, like we all do. And yet triumphed in the eyes of God. And so if we could just do the same thing, that's all we need to do.
That's right.
And so thank you for this time. I know our husbands are probably waiting for us and looking.
They're probably like, I'm hungry, Mom.
Waiting patiently for us to finish up. But I do appreciate that you took this time to share your beautiful story with me and us. And
thank you for letting me.
I hope somebody will get something from this.
I hope so too. That's all I want, is just somebody to hear this story and know they're not alone.
Yeah.
I hope that what happened to us never happens to anybody else, but it does, unfortunately. Whether it's one thing or another, and it just takes one person's story to make you feel better about the situation you're in.
And I think at the end of the day, it's not that maybe that it doesn't happen to somebody else, but that they are blessed by it in the same way.
Or
recognize the blessing in that.
Like, they're scared of special needs kids, and hearing my story, they're like, oh, so they are human. Like, there's nothing wrong with them, or whatever.
And I don't want to make this so deep, but I think there's like this stigma around that, and there's this idea that, I mean, in some ways, like, people will get tested for this early on in pregnancy. For Down syndrome, for example.
We had that.
And have that conversation. And it's almost like an acceptable thing, No, and again, no judgment, right? Everybody
Mhm.
has to make their own choices and live with their own choices, right?
Right.
Like I have no judgment for people.
The only person that can judge you is God.
Correct, and I would stand 100% by that. But the only thing I would wish is that people could see that a life can be beautiful in whatever situation, right? Like that it's given, it can be.
You sit down with a Down
So
syndrome
beautiful.
kid and talk to him for a while. Your
That's
whole
beautiful
world,
hearts.
your light, your world would be so opened up to a whole new level of.
But it's almost given to these women as like
I know it's funny to me. It's
you
like,
should
oh,
be
God gave,
doing this.
like, another hard thing about it is people. Well, you must be a really special person if you get to raise a kid that's got special needs, and I'm like, so what's wrong with you?
Right.
You know, like don't.
It's not
apples
either
and
way.
oranges.
Right.
It's like,
not
it is
either
what
way.
it is.
It is what it is, but I think there are matches that God has made with parents and children, right? Like
Oh, absolutely.
there are matches that He has made, and there's reasons that you and Mike were given Kyle that are clear if you know yourselves and you know Kyle. And I think that there's a reason that we're so close and we get to be around him. Like I'm thankful that we're so close and we get to be in your life. Like I feel special. I feel chosen in a weird way to be.
Yeah, because we've
close.
given you. We have allowed you in our life. Like we have allowed you in our world,
and to be like deemed like. You know, like trusted enough.
Yeah, because we don't trust anybody with our kids.
Yeah, trusted enough. Yeah, that if something did happen to you all, that you trusted us enough to care for him in that same way. And so I feel very special in that way.
And there's never been anybody else but you and Roger,
ever. But I mean, but in that same like that you can see that we appreciate and love him and can see how special and valuable he is.
Yes. And we'll love him unconditionally just like we do.
Correct. And so in that same way, right, like it's not like we weren't gifted with, we have our boys and we weren't gifted with a special needs child, but we've been gifted with this capacity to value and love him. In that same way.
I never looked at it from your point of view.
And so it's not that, but it could be that. And so thank you for this time, and
thank you.
And so thank you for sharing, and we just hope that someone maybe gets something out of this where they feel a little closer to, or appreciate maybe these children, but also like the path that God can put you on, and where it could lead. And it's like it can go all different ways
to him, and the path to him and other parts of life.
Yeah, you just never know. It could be like a wild ride.
You are worthy in an unworthy way.
Yeah. It's I think it's, what do we put? Unworthy but not worthless. Right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
So we can be unworthy because we cannot redeem ourselves. That does not mean that we are worthless. Because to him we were worth so much that he died for us. And that's everything.
And he's still working miracles every day.
Yeah. And Kyle is a miracle in the flesh. And so we're blessed to know him. We're blessed to know you guys. And I love you so much. All right.
I love you. Love you too.
All right. You can turn the cameras off.
Yep, we're done. We're done being girls.